pleasant day, everyone. Today we are going to report the tools and equipments used in sewing. But before that, let me ask you a question. What comes to your mind when you hear the word sewing? Presumably, you might think of needles and threads, scissors. Well, that's correct, as according to Collins' dictionary, sewing is the activity of making or mending clothes or other things using a needle and thread. Moving on to the tools and equipment, let me introduce to you first the needle. A needle is a long, slender tool with a pointed tip at one end and a hole at the other. Second, pins are used all the time in sewing projects to hold patterns to fabric. It temporarily holds seams before stitching and for basting layers together when making a quilt. Third is what we call a thimble. It is a metal or plastic cap with a closed end worn to protect the finger and push the needle in sewing. Then we have the sewing threads. These are special kinds of yarns that are engineered and designed to pass through a sewing machine rapidly. The basic function of a thread is to deliver aesthetics and performance in stitches and seams. Ruler, as usual, is a tool used for measuring straight lines. And we have this tool called the tape measure. It is used primarily for taking body measurements as well as for drafting patterns, measuring fabrics, laying out patterns on fabric, specifying the length of a garment, checking the size of hems, measuring curves and corners, measuring curtains, quilts, and much more. Next is what we call an emery bag. It is used to sharpen and remove rust from needles. A pin cushion is a small stuffed cushion, typically 3 to 5 centimeters across, which is used in sewing to store pins or needles with their heads protruding to take hold of them easily, collect them, and keep them organized. A dressmaker's shears have a long blade, making them ideal for cutting out fabric. These scissors have tapered blades with one pointed and one rounded tip. The blunt tip prevents fabric from snagging in seams and threads. Last but not the least is what we call a sewing gauge. It is a ruler typically 6 inches long, used for measuring short spaces. It is typically a metal scale marked in both inches and centimeters with a sliding pointer. These 10 equipments being mentioned are the most essential for a dressmaker in sewing. It will give you a way to calculate startup costs, and secondly, in learning the functions of sewing tools and equipment, you will be able to define exactly what sort of duties a person in this industry performs. That would be all. Thank you.